So sit up on enough of blanket or two. I know that what we want is the knees to be level with or lower than the frontal hip bones. So when they start to come up, then we start to roll back. You know, instead of we go high or they go low, we go high. These go high, we go low. So we want to roll up. And also there's always, Shelley, what you were doing is fine. You can do this, or you can sit straight, or you can, I like to sit this way sometimes, if that works. Yeah, so anything you can do to help. What's more important is to roll to the frontmost and innermost edge of the sits bones. We do that because we want to align everything on top of each other. So if we're rolled back, then the shoulders have to come forward. If we're too arched forward, then we have to like compensate there and hyper extend in the low back. So you find that little place in the middle where you don't have to use a lot of effort to sit up straight. And sitting up straight is actually very little effort. There's not a huge pinching or gripping to do that. And we begin. First, notice the breath and connect with your breath. Deepen the breath. With each inhale, the breath deepens and the diaphragm drops and the low belly appears to inflate. And then the side ribs move out 360, back and front. And then the breath in the upper chest. And you put all of those together. And draw your palms together in front of your heart center. Set your intention for your practice this morning. It can be a feeling or a word. And we'll chant Om together to begin the vibrations. Inhale, exhale, cleansing breath. Inhale to Om. Release the hands, flutter the eyes. All right. Find your ball and begin to press. First, just pressing this thin arm eminence. If you're working on the mouse a lot, that will get tender. Gardening, sewing, all kinds of things. Any kind of, like using a screwdriver, I was finding was not friendly. So press hard. And then roll and rinse from wrist to fingertip, wrist to other fingertip, and scribble. Take a moment. Just notice the difference between the two hands. Change sides. First, press, giving a good press under each knuckle and around the base of the palm, the whole circumference of the palm. And then again to rinse from wrist to fingertip and scribble and release. Let's do a quick chest opener. It's really important, I think, in the mornings particularly, but it's really good to do at night as well before you go to bed, because the tendency of the day is to do this. As we get to the end of the day, we're probably all a little more rounded. So find that armpit chest. You guys know where it is, the triangle there, and start to press and find tender spots. Ow, ow spot. I know, right? Ooh. Dan's even doing it in his armpit. I don't know. That's interesting. I'm not sure I'm going to go that distance, but I find plenty to do. And trailing not on the collarbone, it hurts on the bone, but just under the collarbone towards the midline. Oh, tender. And then pause a minute before you switch to the other side, just to notice that already this side feels more buoyant, like it's taking on more air. So switch to the other side. Oh, and find new places of joy and sensation. And working just under the collarbone, rolling it. Ooh. It's interesting. I don't have the same tenderness on both sides, but I have tenderness just in different places. Like, yeah. On this side, it's a little bit different. It could be the same, but don't be surprised. I just find that interesting. All right, release. Come to hands and knees. Add your knees as you wish. This is so weird. And begin to do some round and arch. Really articulate through the hips. And the hips initiate the action as the head and shoulders follow. Really stretch into it. And then make some circles with the hips, one way and then the other. And pause. Tuck your toes. Walk the hands about handprint distance in front of the hips and the knees about a handprint distance behind, and come into an easy dog. Laura's right. I have to cure this mat. It's not very sticky. The slippy mat. Walk your dog. And walk your hands back to your toes. Forward bend at the back of your mat. Begin to do a little micro bend, micro straighten here. Either half forward bend where the spine is long, or full forward bend if that's accessible to you this early in the morning. A little micro bend, micro straighten, micro bend, micro straighten, just to warm up the muscles, but not to traumatize them. On your next inhale, come halfway up, knees soft, hands on your hips, shrug your shoulders towards your ears, lift the head of the arm bones to the back body and hug the shoulder blades, pull the shoulder blades down the back. Use the legs and lift your belly button into your spine, hinge from your hips, rise up and release. Good. Work the feet. Dan, you can lock the door now. Thank you. All right, press. Always hold on to the wall if you want the balance, or a chair, anything near you. Ow. And find all those little joyous places along the feet. And work your way towards the back of the foot. Roll it from heel to toes. And then scribble, finding that little place that that foot needs more inner arch for that side. All right, release. Even just a few seconds of that, such a huge impact all the way up the legs, even up to T12, the middle ribs. All right, change sides. Push and press. Push hard. Don't be afraid. Starting with the toes, working towards the soft part of the arch. Whew. Feel that all the way up under the rib. You will sometimes feel a little like you'll hit a nerve, and it's part of the fascial chain, I think, but there are nerves, there are connections from the bottom of the feet to other parts of the body. Whole study of that. And finish up on that side so it's even, and release. Find your strap, open the shoulders. Sorry. All right. If you've got a strap with a buckle, beware of the buckle. We'll smack you in the face if you're not respectful of its presence. Take a fairly wide stance. Stand well, feet parallel. Inner thighs move back and apart, tailbone down, belly button up and in. So remember, we talk about, this is again your volume control here. So if I raise all the way up, you want to be able to bend and make almost a right angle here. But if I go farther than my shoulders allow, the bottom ribs will pop out, the head will go forward, and all kinds of things will be weird. So bring it front if you need to. You can have it right down by your forehead. So pull the strap apart and pull down with the elbows like a lat bar, and then press up. So give it some resistance, like you are working those machines where you're having to push the weight up and you're having to pull it down. And you hug the shoulder blades on the back. They're just sticking like glue and moving down the back, depressing down the back. Ooh. And release. Shake off. Behind you, about, maybe the thumbs almost touch, maybe not, depending on how tight your shoulders are, but not too wide. I want the arms to be able to slide out. Keep them tucked in behind you here. Again, the legs are still working. So a lot of times when we start to work the upper body, the legs just take a break. And what that will do is cause stress to the low back. So we want to keep the legs and the core engaged as we're working the upper body. So soften the knees, inner thighs back and apart, tailbone lengthens down into that space, firming the low belly. Bottom ribs move down, and then just lift the arms and lower. Lift and lower. Do this on the breath. Inhale, lift. Exhale, lower. Inhale, lift. And notice, kind of peek around, if you start to see the shoulders or feel the shoulders coming forward, then you're trying to lift too far, too fast. So it's better to take tiny little lifts, keeping the head of the arm bone back, than think it's something about the big and they'll just roll forward. You keep working. Move the top and bottom of the ears back towards the back body, not by lifting the chin. Keep the back of the neck long. Chin kind of pulls in and back, not tucks, but moves back. And release. Shake off. Nice warm up of the shoulders, even more. Put the strap over your right shoulder. I'm going to turn around from the back. The left hand reaches up and grabs. Oh. And you crawl the fingers towards each other. This elbow, if this is my tight side, so this elbow tends to come down to kind of help it up, and then use the bottom hand to pull down to get the elbow pointing more towards the ceiling. There you go. So Shelley, you want the strap to be over the shoulder that the elbow is up with. How is that for a sentence construction? Okay, there you go. That's right. I communicated, but not well. Nope, nope, nope. You had the right arms up. You had the strap over the wrong shoulder. So the strap, the elbow that's up is the shoulder where the strap be. Okay, so there you go. There you go. All right. And with the legs strong, knees bent, just tilt from the hips. So don't lose anything. You feel that the spine is staying. You don't have to tilt far. The head's not leading. Keep pushing your head up. See if you can push your head into the back body there. So you're just tilting down on the exhale, inhale on the up. You don't have to go very far, but just keep lifting, stretching through the elbows. So the elbows trying to arc out and draw this big arc circle if you had a little pencil point right here. And release, shake off, switch it over. Strap side is the upside. There, that's better than my convoluted sentencing. Now push the back of the head back. So some people can get the arm up to where on this side it's a little more open for me. So I can push the back of the head into some part of the forearm or the hand. So the head doesn't fold forward. Shoulder blades hug on the back. Soften the knees, but the legs are firm. Inner thighs back and apart. Tailbone down. Engage the core, xiphoid to tailbone. That's the bottom tip of the sternum towards the tailbone, bottom ribs down. And just tilt. Don't round the back. Once you feel the back pulling away from or pushing into some part of the arms or the hands, then it means you're using this in the spine. Don't want any flexion in the spine. Just hip joints, where those little birds you find in souvenir shops that fill with blue water and it just tips down and tells you how the humidity is doing or something. I don't know. I got one once, release. And then of course, somehow I immediately broke it. So I haven't. If anybody goes to a chintzy souvenir shop and you see one, I will pay you for it. Just get it. I'm sure I could find it on Amazon if I looked, but I refused. Part of the joy is going into a little roadside, right, dump, but who's traveling anymore? All right, step to the top of your mat. Have your blocks near you. So Shelley, you can do this. Do you want the chair, or you can do this on the wall as well? So let me show you what we're doing, okay? So we're gonna do a simple sun salutation. And the way you can do it, just watch for a minute. Anybody can do this. The way you can do it on the wall, this is cobra pose. So when we're on our belly lying on the floor, this is cobra pose, or this. This is dog pose and half forward bend. It's the same thing. Knees are soft. When we do a lunge, you step the toes to the wall, use the hand here. And then if we straighten and bend, we can do that. Step back and there, okay? So I think for your knees, that might be the best thing to do. How do you feel about that? Okay. All right, do whatever makes you comfortable. All right, good. You did. Nobody fell over. We were good. All right. Press down through the four corners of the feet. Press the shins energetically forward. Inner thighs back and apart. Tailbone down. Rise up. Next exhale, bow forward. Inhale, halfway up. Again, hinge from the hips. Exhale, bow. Inhale, halfway up. Exhale, bow. Inhale, halfway up. Exhale, bow. Inhale, prepare, and step your right leg back, straight leg lunge. You may want blocks on either side. If that's the case, use them. Bend and straighten. Right leg is back. Come to lunge. Step the back foot up a little bit and push off to come to standing splits. Oh, hug your outer standing leg in. If your left leg is a standing leg, hug the outer hip in so you're not dropping into the hip. Bring the leg in for a landing. Hands on your hips, shrug your shoulders, lift the head of the arm bones, and hinge from your hips as you rise up. release. Inhale, rise up. Exhale, bow forward. Inhale, prepare, step your left leg back, straight leg lunge. And then bend, straighten, bend. Bend, straighten, bend. And you're light on the fingertips, or you're even practicing your balance. Shrug the shoulders, lift the head of the arm bones. But the spine is still parallel to the floor. You're not moving this upper body, except it's kind of sliding side to side. So while I was looking for the chalk pattern, you were doing this for quite a while, I think. Let me know when this feels like it's about the same amount of time. We fatigue faster on the second side. So the fingertips are touching the floor or the block. And if they're not touching the floor, they can. That's how you measure where your torso is. And then hop the back foot up a little bit to get all your weight on your standing leg, the front leg, and push off, lift the left leg high, come into a standing split or warrior three, where the leg and the torso are about the same level. Hug your outer right hip in, lift up longer on the standing leg, and bring your leg in for a landing. Exhale, bow. Inhale, halfway up. Hands on your hips, shrug your shoulders, lift the head of the arm bones, heads in line with the spine, push down through the legs, core engages as you tilt from the hips. Rise up. Exhale, release. Do it. Inhale, rise up. Exhale, bow forward. Inhale, prepare and step back, downward facing dog. Oh, yeah. And on your inhale, shift forward to plank pose, soften between the shoulder blades. Hug the shoulder blades on the back. Keep that, don't pull them off. Keep hugging the shoulder blades onto the back as you come back to dog. Legs can be as bent as you need them. Pay attention particularly to your shoulder blades. Hug them onto the back. Oh, I know. And back to dog. So back and forth. Inhale up to plank. Hug your shoulder blades firmly on the back and pull them down. Keep them there as you exhale back to dog. And then the next time you come into dog, pause a minute. Step the left foot forward, straight leg lunge, and lower your back knee. Pat it as you wish. The hands come to the inside. Walk your left foot out a little bit to the side. The blocks keep the back toes tucked. Keep enough work in the back leg. The back knee, the left knee, you're working for it to go behind the hip. So we're not making a square. That is one form of a pose, but you walk the back knee back and the front foot forward. So you feel a nice stretch on the quadricep there. And the blocks can be as high as you need them. Your arms are on the inside of the front leg, Shelley, so bring your right arm to the inside of the right leg. Bring the block with it. There you go. Wiggle your right leg out to the right. There you go. It's early. You don't need to have to think. All right. Scissor the legs in as though you're lifting. Get light on the back knee. It's like you're trying to lift the back knee. In fact, take about 60% of the weight off the back knee. You have a little bit, not a lot. There. Front foot, front leg, the knee is right over the ankle, not forward of the ankle. So Shelley, pull back a little bit. There you go. If you can come forward, it means you can widen your stance. Ooh, careful. Hug in. Yeah, well, so what you have to do, I've had people that happen, don't do that. Don't come forward. No, but don't. You have to use the strength of your muscles way, way more to support the joints because you don't have the meniscus and the padding in between the joints on that knee. So when that happens, then all the muscles have to do a lot more work, which is why the strength is important. All right, yeah. And you can ease a little bit in and a little bit out. Not full movements, just pull the sits bones back, inner thighs move apart, and then move forward, pull it back. So you're working and opening the inner thighs wide apart, tailbone lengthens as you come forward. Pull it back, pull it wide apart, and then tailbone lengthens. These little micro movements can work deeply here. Oh. And then with the blocks on either side, walk the leg so it's now in front of you. So it was off to the side. Walk it so it's in front of you. Light on the, so you have the blocks here. Try to put as little weight on the blocks as you can. Flex the foot, pull the baby toe side of the foot back to the outer hip. Inner thighs move back towards the back heel and apart. And then stretch the heart towards the big toe, the front big toe, the right big toe, left big toe, sorry. Inhale, come center. Move the blocks, step back, downward facing dog. Step the right foot forward so you can lower both knees. Haul the right foot up, both arms to the inside. Come to your blocks. Tuck your back toes and scissor the legs in. So as little weight on the back knee as possible. That will prevent discomfort, actually. So when we ground all the weight into the kneecap, that the kneecap begins to eject. Press into the four corners of the front foot and pull the front heel back towards your knee, and the back knee, the left knee, is pulling towards the front heel. That will keep you pretty busy in there. Keeping that, so don't let go of that engagement. Now the inner thighs move wide back, wide apart and back. Tailbone lengthens, keeping that engages the core. Then do a little back. So come back in just to relieve it. Inner thighs move in and apart, tailbone lengthens. So do the pulsing that we did, where the inner thighs move back on the exhale, and inhale, the tailbone lengthens. So it's not huge movements. You're maybe not even fully straightening the front leg. You're just backing out of the pose a little bit and then coming into it. A little back out on the exhale, a little fully into it on the inhale. Just to work deeply into the hip socket. Work all the muscles around the hips. So we engage as we stretch. That makes for safe joints. Walk your blocks back either side of your leg. Again, you have some weight on it, but we tend to like dump everything into it and then lose the upper body alignment. So they're there to help you, but they're not the only support. Your legs are supporting you. Flex the front foot, pull the baby toe side of the foot towards the outer right hip, and step on the gas a little bit with the big toe ball of the foot, just to keep yourself from sickling the foot. And then the inner thighs move apart and go back, way back towards the wall behind you as you stretch your heart, not your chin, but the heart is stretching towards the front foot. Woo, feel the burn, babies. Shoulder blades hug onto the back. The neck is neutral. The head's neither dropped, nor is the chin lifted. Neutral is hard to find sometimes, I find. And release. All right, step back, downward facing dog. And lower all the way down to your belly. And come up onto your forearms, Sphinx pose. Stretch the legs long behind you. Hug the elbows towards each other like you're squeezing a block gently. And the elbows, the elbows just slightly in front of the shoulders. So when the elbows come too far back, it makes us roll the head of the arm bone back. So the elbows come slightly forward. Then as you push into the forearms and the hands, hug an imaginary block between your elbows and pull the elbows back towards the hips isometrically to stretch the upper body through. Now, if the elbows are back too far, you don't get that sense of pulling out. So play with moving your elbows a little bit farther in front of you just to see what works. If you feel this in the low back, which I just did, because as I talked, I forgot my core. So I have to lift the inner thighs up energetically towards the ceiling, tailbone lengthens, belly button pulls in, and that clears the low back for me. Then tuck your toes, keep everything in the upper body, lift your hips and bump your knees forward a tiny bit, keep the toes tucked, hug another imaginary block between your knees, and just hover the knees off the floor without changing anything. Head does not drop, so the knees are touching the floor, but there's no weight on them. Lift your hips though, Candace. Lift your hips, but lower the knees. Keep the hips up. There you go. Lift the hips a little more, a little more, a little more. Now, hover the knees just barely off the floor. Not that much. Like, I mean, the skin's touching, but I know it's harder, right? Quit picking on me, lady. Turn the other way. You got a round mat. All right, again. Woo. Core work. Core work, Eileen. Here we are. I waited for you. Oh. Belly button lifts. Hug the shoulder blades deeply on the back. Pull them in and soften between the shoulder blades. Oh, all right, release. If you haven't had the sense to do that already, cross your hands on top of each other and windshield wiper the legs to release anything that went on in the low back. All right, round two. This was so much fun. We'll do it again. If your elbows feel like they're like hurting into the floor, put a blanket under your forearms. Come back up to Sphinx pose. Lift your bum, bump your knees forward a little bit, walk your feet in. So the hips are about level with your shoulders. You're like in a funny, I don't know what this is, isn't quite child's pose, isn't quite puppy pose. It's just a weird little butt up position. Now, lift your knees just enough to clear the floor, but not to put much light under there. And then straighten the left leg, keep the right knee just kissing the floor, no weight on it. And then slowly pull the left knee in and slowly push the right foot out. So the knee never puts weight on the floor, but it kisses the floor as it comes in. Exchange again, really slowly, like you're pushing heavy concrete blocks or something. Okay, anybody else ready to quit? All right, let's do that. It's one thing about having me do them, I don't hold you in them as long. I get wimpy fast. All right, push back, child's pose. Knees apart, toes together. Rest your head on a block or stack your hands or fist so the head's not hanging way down low. It's coming out of your spine. Breathe deeply into your low belly. You can also rest in puppy pose where your hips are over your knees. And come up. Come to sit on so you guys can face me and sit on your left bum. So the legs are off to the right. The hands out beyond the shoulder, not right under here, but again, you know that this gets weird and this is weird. So you've got a little play in here about what your shoulders do. So as you hug in, pull, so what do you hug in here? When we're standing, we think about hugging the legs in, but here what we want to do is it's like you're hugging the legs towards each other, even though they're not stacked right on top of each other. You can feel the core start to work as soon as you start to engage the legs. Inner thighs move back behind you. And even though they're quite close together, widen the upper inner thighs apart. Do you feel what you have to use in the core to do that? Keeping that, tailbone lengthens and pulls forward to really engage core. Now, just with the arm, just like relax into the shoulder and then push up. So you're just doing it just here with getting the sense of how this moves. Now notice, is the shoulder rolling forward? Keep the head of the arm bone back as you kind of plug in and out. And if you notice, that's causing the shoulder blade to slide across the ribs. Yep. If you've got frozen shoulder, you're really tight in the shoulder, you might be able to do this. But as you keep working it, you're going to release all the plaque, all of the stiffness there. So it's just in the shoulder. Now, if you release into it, then push away from the floor, plug the head of the arm bone in and hug the shoulder blade on the back a lot. The right hand's on the hip and lift the hip without pulling out of your shoulder. And then just lower, not the weight all the way down, but just kiss the floor and lift. It's a Maria move, right? Working some of the obliques, and you don't have to lift far. If you're feeling pain in the shoulder, it means you've lost the whole, well, it may mean you need to quit because you've tired it out. But also a lot of times if I just hang in the shoulder, then the shoulder takes the brunt. But you've got to pull up and like hug the shoulder blade on the back a lot, and it's not in the shoulder then, right? So you're not coming in and out of the shoulder, and release. Come into just an easy seated diamond and do a nice slumpasana forward. Soles of the feet together, way away from you. And then swing the legs to the other side. So first you just play into the shoulder mobility. Like think about the shoulder blade keeps moving. It's just sliding across the back of the ribs, the right shoulder blade in this case. Just see if you can feel it move. Claw into the floor, pull up and slide out. So you're just working, just playing with hanging in the shoulder blade a little bit. We're not putting weight on it, so very much weight, so it shouldn't strain anything. And notice if you feel any quirks, you've got to hug all the muscles around the shoulder blade, trapezius and the serratus, and even the pecs to help you engage the rotator cuffs so that they don't have to bear the whole brunt. And now, as you soften down a bit, hug the shoulder blade on the back, then draw up, right? Lengthen. On the inhale, just lift the hips. Exhale, they just kiss down. You're not releasing the weight. And it can be a tiny little lift and a tiny little lower without having any mobility in the shoulder. So you shouldn't feel the shoulder blade now moving off around on the back. It's hugging in deeply. When I pay attention there, I don't feel strain in the shoulder joint. But as soon as I lose that sense of connectedness, and if you start to feel pain, it means the muscles just are tired, so quit. And release. Yeah, well, you may have been able, so our sides are different. Shelley said it was much easier on this last side than the first side. So we have, because we use our shoulders differently, they have different mobility, and they also tend to get injured differently or get stiff differently. So you'll notice you get to explore. And that's what I love about this, because I'm kind of a geek, is that I love playing around with what part of my body is doing what, right? And how is it playing? And what if I do this, what happens then? And that's what I want you guys to do. You know? All right, so sit up on at least one blanket folded over a bunch of times or two, so that we get some relief in the hips and the low back. Stretch the legs out. Have your strap near you. And here, the manual inner rotation, the inner thighs move down to the floor And then think about widening the inner thighs. How do you do that? Well, sometimes you widen the inner thighs, the toes come together. You can let that happen for a bit. Now keep the inner thighs going down and widening like someone's pulling them on either side as we do when we adjust. Now to not sickle the feet, micro bend the knees and hug the heels towards each other without losing that inner thigh. So you can't go too far either way or you lose it. And then lift up in the back. Take your strap, put it around the left foot, bend the right knee. So here, this foot can either go way forward if you need that space, or if it works to have it come back towards the hip. Then both arms on the inside of the right knee. Take hold of your reins here, and you're working towards the foot, but with length, not with collapse. So roll to the frontmost and innermost edge of the sits bones, hug the right knee into the right arm. So there's some connection there, and reach the heart towards the toes. So not the chin, the tendency is to do this, but lift up, lengthen on the inhale. Exhale, tilt the pelvis towards the toes, just a tiny bit. Hug with the bent knee in. Heel stays on the floor, because Dan, if you're pulling the heel up, you're hyperextending behind the knee, and you're pretty flexible. Keep the heel on the floor. There you go. Dig the heel in and pull it back. There you go. Nice. Soften the jaw, soften the face. And keep hold of the strap and open the right knee into, it's Janu Shirshasana, I can't ever say that, Shirshasana, but it's kind of like tree pose. And then lengthen. If sitting up is hard, if the hips are tight, you just tilt back so you can hug the shoulder blades on the back. And then you keep working, keeping the shoulder blades on the back, just keep tilting until you feel your fair share of stretch on the straight leg. Heel stays down, but you're kind of pressing, stepping on the gas with the ball of the foot. And pull the elbows back by the ribs so the heart can move forward. So the classic pose is, yes, to reach forward. But if you're really tight, all you're going to focus on, and you're going to get really roundy. So we'll go to roundy later. This is for length. The shoulder blades are hugging onto the back, head of the arm bones moving to the back body. Nice. And then release the strap and turn your hips so you're halfway in between and just walk out on a diagonal. It may be that sitting up on a diagonal is where you are. Once you do this, you've lost that love and feeling. So you lift up and tilt forward. Keep working the straight leg. So you're tilting straight out from the pelvis. So it's a diagonal off your mat, most likely, depending on how your leg is set. And release. Shake off. All right, see if I can remember that on this side. Lasso the other foot, your right foot. So this time the left leg is bent, but it can't be close to the knee. It kind of cramps you. You have to walk it out a little bit so your left arm or left shoulder can get inside. So Sherry, you can walk this foot away from the, there you go. Yeah, so we don't want this out. We want the foot and the ankle to still be on top of each other. So yeah, so you feel that in the hip socket when you hug in. Dan, the left arm comes to the inside of the left knee. Just lift it up and over. You're here, come here. No, both hands, both hands. Taking one strap, one hand in, one strap. There you go. Now, pull in and pull. As you pull, push back, pull the elbows back towards your ribs so you're not rounding. You want to pull the head of the arm bones back. Now squeeze with the inner knee. Do you feel that in the hip? I feel that in the hip flexor a lot, particularly on that side. You squeeze it in, and the heart, you're lifting up. You're trying to lift the pelvis up and tilt the pelvis first. Because so often we drop the pelvis back. So we want to lift it up. So it's not so important how far you come towards your toes, more what the pelvis is doing. Oh. All right. Hey, babe, what's up? You ready for Shavasana? Huh? You ready for Shavasana? Okay, open up into Janu Shirshasana. Ooh, I said it without thinking. It's like tree pose, only sitting down. And you don't have to have the foot close to the hip. It can come way down here, Shelley, way by the ankle, because that will allow you to pull on the strap to tilt, lift your pelvis up. You're still rolling back a bit. So since, yeah, but even you can tilt back. There you go. Do you feel how now you're in a line? Otherwise, you're shortening. So we want to lengthen the side body is another way to think about that. So regardless of how you still want to be lengthened, and then you keep working to tilt the hips forward. And you'll feel that then in the hamstring as you tilt the hips forward. And release the belt. And just turn to face straight out. Your hips are at an angle anyway. Now the shoulders are there. Here we were in a twist. Just so again, walking out. So you may just sit up straight with it. It's more about sitting up straight and just keep tilting the hips. So you're lifting. Here's your pelvis. You're lifting the front. The as-is bones here are going forward. Sits bones are moving back. If the pinkies are my sits bones, oh, I haven't done this before. And the as-is bones are the thumbs. I want them to be in that relationship. We tend to keep them in that relationship. That's called slumping, rounding the back. It's about lengthening. Nice. And release. Lie on your back. Have a block near you. It's an easy reach. Oh. And enjoy the floor for just a moment. The feet are about outer hip width apart, slightly pigeon-toe the toes in. So it feels like it's pigeon-toed, but it doesn't really look pigeon-toed. The arms in robot position. Yeah, you always come over here to give me a pup kiss when I'm in this position, don't you? All right, push into your feet and pull the feet isometrically back towards the hips. So that means the feet don't move, but it causes you to tilt the pelvis. Do you feel that? When you push the feet away from your hips, the low back begins to come towards the floor and the sits bones lift more towards the ceiling. They don't come off the floor. I mean, your hips don't come off the floor. And then push into the floor and pull the heels back. So you see how you're doing hip tilts here, cat-cow? Keep doing that by pushing and pulling, pushing and pulling. So you're rounding the back and you're arching the back, but it's a very tiny movement. You're not lifting the hips off the floor. And then the next time you pull the heels towards your hips and the low back lifts off the floor, keep that. The inner thighs are moving towards your heels and widen your inner thighs wide apart. Use the core to do that. Tailbone lengthens, belly button drops, but the back waist stays off the floor. And then on your next exhale, keep all of that. Bend your elbows and snug your shoulder blades underneath you. Inhale, lift the hips a little bit. Exhale, drop them just a little bit to inner rotate the thighs, not all the way to the floor. Inhale, lift a tiny bit more. Exhale, slightly lower. Inhale, lift a tiny bit more. Snug your shoulder blades underneath you more. Press the center back of your head into the floor. Keep that little release down, little lift up. It's tiny. It's just a little release to inner rotate the thighs more. An engagement, the tailbone lengthens. Once you come as high as the hips go and the chest is open, press into your elbows to get the shoulder blades even more on your back and tack the head of the arm bones towards the floor, top of the shoulders. And then from the glutes to the heels, engage. So pull up from the heels all the way into the glutes, not by squeezing the glutes together, but if you pull the heels back, you will engage the hamstrings and the glutes. Yes. Who really among us wants a soft bum? Nobody. And we know that strong glutes help us keep a strong back as well. They support us in so many ways. Balance, core stability. All right, we're lower and just rock back and forth. You can windshield wiper, widen the feet apart, and windshield wiper the legs, arms in a T position. And just lazily drop to one side and then the other. And then come back upright. And one of my new favorite stretches that Jill Brooks taught me, she's starting her Thursday night class tonight at 6 o'clock. So with the right knee, open the right knee and drop the right knee towards the floor. So you're like an open position. The left knee straight up and down. Feel a little bit of stretch in the inner thigh and maybe some stretch across the top of the quadricep. Keep working the right knee towards the short edge of your mat. Oh, and stretch from the core of the pelvis all the way through the right thigh. The left leg is it's staying upright. The knee is pointed to the ceiling, but it's not winging off to the side or doing anything too strange. And inhale, release. Just pause. That feels so good. I'm loving that. And then bend the other one. It's like you're bending it up underneath you. And it can stay as open as possible. Your right knee is staying down. So Shelly, it looks like this. Sorry, turn here, like this. Can you see it? Okay. And so the knee may be pointing fairly far out to the side. You can still get a good stretch that way. If you have a little more flexibility, you might even be able to reach and hold the left foot with the right hand. For some people, that's too much of a pinch on the knee, so don't go to that place. I even like to create a counterweight with the other foot, so I like to put the right foot on the inner knee just to give it a little more stretch. But if in any way that stresses or makes a joint feel like it's unsafe, then you pull back. Yeah, this will either, so if you start moving your knee towards me, the left knee, yeah, keep moving down towards me. Yeah, more and more. And do you feel more stretch there? Yeah, so that's your volume control to move how far out it is. And, you know, holding the foot is not necessary. It's just a way for people who want a little more stretch. So for some people, this is not tight for them. Other people, it's very tight. So you adjust it as you need it. Good. And then release, stretch both legs out long. Arms overhead, stretch them out. Big long stretch. Moan, yawn, whatever you need to do. And then do any other movements you want to do before final relaxation. Settle in, use blankets where you need them, cover up if you're cool, put blankets or blocks under your knees. Sort yourself out. And you let the bones sink into the earth. The pelvic bone, your hip, the bones in your hips, the big bone in your hip, one of the heaviest bones. So you let it sink. I like the image of the anchor really nestled and snugged into warm sand. And once that begins to settle and ground, then everything else can release. The skin, muscles, organs. Swallow to soften your throat. Part your back teeth slightly. Part your lips slightly. Allows you to soften the cheeks and the jaw. Ears and temples soften. Your eyeballs settle back into the cradle of your eye sockets as all the muscles around your eyes release and soften. Space between the eyebrows, the third eye center, softens all the way into the center of the skull. Forehead and scalp soften. Follow your breath in and out. Begin to deepen your breath, stretching your arms and legs. Moving the muscles in the face, yawning, or just making faces, getting ready for your Halloween face. And gradually draw your knees in and roll to your side and rest there. Just for these few last moments, be fully present in this moment. And rolling a little more towards the floor, use the strength of your arms to press yourself up and sit well. Sit on blankets, blocks, so your spine is long. You're rolling to the frontmost and innermost edge of your sits bones. Draw your palms together in front of your heart center. And in Namaste, we are acknowledging the light that's in all of us, but also acknowledging that we all want to be well, happy, and peaceful. Namaste. Thank you.